Southern California Land Rover dealers. Bristol Farms, your extraordinary food store. Best tasting, freshest food, Bristol Farms. U.S. Bank. At U.S. Bank, we're pleased to champion athletic programs that enrich the quality of life for everyone. U.S. Bank. All of us serving you. In-N-Out Burger. That's what a hamburger's all about. L.A. Car Guy. Find out more about the important link between surfing and cystic fibrosis at lacarguy.com/cure. Land Rover USC game day starts now.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Land Rover Trojan pregame show. I'm Ron Pivo, along with the coach, Harvey Hyde. It's USC taking on Nebraska at 5 o'clock in the National University Holiday Bowl. We will be here for the next 2 hours and hand it off to Steve Mason and the rest of the crew after that, and they will take you up to kickoff. So far, there have been a handful of bowl games played. There's been the Bahamas Bowl. They had one of the wildest finishes you'll ever see. There was the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, the Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl. There was the We're 6 and 7. Why are we even in a bowl game, amongst others. But you really get the feeling that the bowl season is kicked into high gear when teams like USC and Nebraska take the field. Two of the most storied college football programs in all of college football history. We'll get into all the specifics about the game. We'll break it down with the Coach Harvey Hyde. So, Coach, when you first saw this matchup, give me your initial reaction. SC, Nebraska, teams that have only played each other 4 times in history. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I really liked it. I liked it because it's the Pac-12 against the Big Ten, which is a natural rivalry for years in the Rose Bowl. Every year, the conference champion from the Rose Bowl from the Big Ten plays the conference champion from the Pac-12. It's been, well, this year's game basically is the 101st Rose Bowl game. Now, it's not a Big Ten Pac-12. It is a Pac-12 with the University of Oregon there, but it's a different format. It's now the Rose Bowl is a playoff. It's a semifinal championship game for the playoffs, which is a whole new scenario as far as college football. But I think it's a great matchup because there's such great tradition in both programs. It's the real deal. I mean, USC 8-4, Nebraska 9-3 represents the Big Ten, and USC represents the Pac-12. And you know, when you look at the Pac-12, if you look at all 7 of their teams that are in bowl games, every single one of them are favored. Every single one of the Pac-12 teams are favored. If you look at the Big Ten, every single team is an underdog. Every single team is an underdog. So you look at this and you say, this is a way that USC can establish, along with the other teams. Utah's already done that in the Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl in beating Colorado State 45-10. So this is a way that the Pac-12 can distinguish themselves in bowl games, as far as with the Stanford-Maryland game, Arizona-Boise State game, Washington-Oklahoma State, ASU-Duke, who are currently playing right now, and ASU is ahead 20-17 at halftime. You've got UCLA-Kansas State, and then in the granddaddy of all of them, you've got Oregon and Florida State. So it's a great matchup, and there's a lot of pride in the programs as well as the conferences. So this is huge. I mean, and both teams last year in bowl games in 2013 finished strong by domination as far as USC under similar situations that Nebraska's under now, dominated Fresno State, a team that was 12-0. And if you looked at Nebraska last year, they beat Georgia in a bowl game. You know, they're a darn good football program down there, and they won that game 24-19. So a lot of tradition. 2 great programs. USC on a roll after the Notre Dame game. When you think about it, Ron, you know, after the UCLA game, USC was sort of the other guys in town. Well, after the next weekend, with the big win over Notre Dame and Stanford beating UCLA, they were back in town, and UCLA was the other team in town. So now we find out during the bowl season who's going to go into recruiting, all fired up with a great season.
Exactly. The shoe is definitely on the other foot. SC is on a roll, and all teams like to get on that roll going into the offseason, going into the recruiting season. I'm sure Steve Sarkisian, if he doesn't have recruits on the sideline, he's going to be on the phone that night, if not the next day. Mike Riley is going to be taking over at Nebraska. He's not coaching today, so it's a really important game for both teams, for both programs, trying to take that next step forward. Obviously, if Nebraska wins, it's a 10-win season, but we'll talk about this later. I almost feel like it's a bigger game for USC because come Sunday, it's a whole new ball game for Nebraska. The slate is wiped clean. Bo Pelini is gone. He's at Youngstown State. But this is interesting is that you have Nebraska and USC, and that's the beauty of college football. When you get into bowl games, it's just a matchup of two teams that, well, you think they may have played each other a lot, but the matchup that the Holiday Bowl has put together is SC Nebraska, teams that have only played each other 4 times. 4 times. A home and home back in the early 70s, a home and home back in 06, 07, something like that. It's unusual matchups. It's different matchups. It's pitting two teams that really don't know much about each other. They may watch each other, but that's the beauty of bowl games. And when I saw this matchup, and I asked you this, when I saw USC Nebraska, I'm like, well, they must have played each other a lot. 4 times. 4 times. And Nebraska has never beaten USC. In those 4 games, 3 SC wins and 1 tie. And that is the beauty of all the bowl games. 2 programs that know each other but don't play each other.
You're exactly right. And they used to recruit heavily in California and Nebraska, but they only have 6 players from the state of California on this year's roster. They've sort of moved away from California, and maybe because of the hiring of Mike Riley, they want to come back into California. And what a better place to do that than in California as far as setting a tone in San Diego, a great recruiting area to come in, look good, play well against the Trojans, and make a note that Mike Riley's now the head football coach. You know, one thing I think about this game, how much do you think Mike Riley helped Cotton as far as preparing for this game? He's already played USC this year, lost 35-10. I just wonder, they say he didn't, he just observed practice and so on, but I wonder if Barney Cotton went up to him and said, Coach, if you were to play him again, what would you do differently, and how would you attack him, or how would you defense him? I just wonder if they ever had that conversation whatsoever.
Well, obviously, they're different players, they're different teams, but Mike Riley, when he was at Oregon State, had an awful lot of success against the USC Trojans. But then again, Mike Riley probably doesn't want to step on anyone's toes. He says, hey, Coach Cotton, take this one. This one's all yours. I'll be here, but you're on your own here. I'm kind of taking over tomorrow.
No, he'll be taking over tomorrow, but it's a whole different setup than last year when SC was playing in the Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl. Clancy Pendergrass was the head football coach, and he wanted to stay on and be an assistant coach. He hadn't got a job, so he did a great job of coaching that team to a dominant win over Fresno State. Steve Sarkisian saw that. He knew the players liked him. But Barney Cotton and the offensive line coach have already accepted jobs at UNLV. So it's immediately following the game, they say goodbye to the kids and they move on. So it's a little bit of a different situation as far as what their future is with Nebraska.
Yeah,
none.
You're right. For Coach Cotton, he's gone, so this isn't really a job interview because he's already accepted another job. So it is going to be a little frigid. I don't want to say frigid. Maybe it's frigid for Southern California temperature, but the game, it's going to be 59 degrees. The winds are going to be out of the north-northwest down in San Diego at 7 miles an hour. It's not going to be as cold as it is here in late December in Southern California. You don't think 59, but that's what we're going to get tonight. Hyundai Game Time Temperature. How many car companies offer the completely redesigned 2015 Sonata? Hyundai and only Hyundai. Visit buyhyundai.com to find your all-new Sonata today. Coming up after the break, our first look at what might transpire on the field tonight at Qualcomm Stadium. For the Coach Harvey Hyde, I'm Ron Pivo, and you're listening to Land Rover Trojan Game Day.
It's Land Rover USC Game Day, getting you ready for the passion of the Cardinal and Gold. Brought to you by Toyota. Hurry into your Southern California Toyota dealers today. We make it easy. Great deals and great MPG. It's MPG made easy at your Toyota dealer. Smart and Final, the warehouse grocery store where big things come in all sizes. Amco, transmissions, and a whole lot more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Land Rover Trojan Game Day. Ron Pivo along with the Coach Harvey Hyde. We're getting ready for the 5 o'clock kickoff. Holiday Bowl. It's USC, Nebraska. What a great, great college football matchup. Whether if it's in the Holiday Bowl, whether if it's September, October, you gotta love this matchup. It's really, though, a couple of college football programs that are in transition. USC has already made the transition to Steve Sarkisian in his first year. 8-4, a ninth win would be nice. Nebraska has made the transition out of the Bo Pelini era into the Mike Riley era. I got to tell you, I covered Mike Riley when he was up at Oregon State. The Beavers went 5-7 this year, and I got to be honest, when the news came out that he was taking over at Nebraska, here's a guy who was in his second tenure up in Corvallis. He said that he was going to stay there forever. He was born in Corvallis. The news that Mike Riley took over at Nebraska completely blew me out of the water. And these days, I've been covering sports for many years, 20, 25 years. There's very few things that I read or I hear that you can my mouth was left wide open. When I heard Riley was going to Nebraska, could not believe it. That was one of those things I'll remember where I was when that happened. What were your thoughts about Coach Riley? Well respected in the college community, but here was a guy who everybody thought was going to stay in Corvallis for the rest of his coaching life, and he gets the job at Nebraska.
Well, I wasn't in big shock. I don't want you to get too nervous over this, but you never know what's going to happen in college coaching anymore. I'll never forget Dennis Erickson was at Oregon State. I don't know if you remember this. The day after the national letter of intent, the day after it, after he's told all these parents in their home and everything that he's going to be their son's father for the next 4 years and all this and that, and we're going to go to bowl games, and you can see us play in Southern California, went to the San Francisco 49ers. The next day, see, those are the type of things I don't think that should be allowed. I think all those kids should be released from their scholarship commitments and have a chance. They can still go there, but at least, kids today go because of the offense you run, the defense you run, and the coach who's going to coach you along with the head coach. So don't be naive to what might happen in college coaching. And how about verbal commits right now, too? You can get a verbal commit. Kid said, I'm coming for sure, and the next thing you hear is decommitting and going somewhere else. So it's more of a me type of situation than it is a team type of situation, Ron. And you can't really blame either side because there's no loyalty any longer. I mean, a coach can have a winning season and something could come up and he's gone. The administration will say, see you later. Now, sometimes they leave with great packages. Don't get me wrong there, with a lot of money. But today, college football, and there's no more amateur athletics. Let me just put it to you that way. It's all money, which is good to the universities, but I don't know if it brings the loyalty and the things that are necessary to have a collegiate atmosphere. But, Mike Riley goes. I'm not that surprised. I thought he was on the bubble. I thought that he was in a position there he hasn't won recently. Didn't go to a bowl game. Here's an opportunity. He's 62 years old. Here he is going to Nebraska where they average, 91,000. I don't know how many sellouts they've had in a row, 80 or 90 sellouts in a row. Great football tradition. You don't lack anything. You have the Lear Jets. You have everything for recruiting. And he gets to bring his staff, and he's probably got $1.5 million, $2 million pay raise. So he'll finish his career there. And for every 2 years or 3 years or 4 years of coaching at Nebraska is the same as 8 years at Oregon State as far as money-wise. So you've got to look at what's best for you now in the field of coaching.
Yeah, there's no question that Mike Riley, I think, looked down the road, I-5 at University of Oregon and knew he was going to be competing against them for the next X amount of years, and that's a real uphill struggle. I was just surprised. It was a 5-7. I think he was going to be on the rocks at Oregon State if he had another year like that, but Oregon State didn't have the finances to buy him out. So I think both Mike Riley and the administration, they were in really, really tough spots, but it's really interesting that Mike has gone over to Nebraska. I wish him the best because he's one of the nicest guys I've really ever met in my life as far as coaches or people. I know him pretty well. Bud Light, what's on tap? The perfect beer for whatever happens. Well, so you're looking at USC and Nebraska. I mean, which team do you feel that really has more to lose in this game? I think Steve Sarkisian getting to that 9-win plateau would be really, really nice. A lot of momentum for the Trojans getting into the offseason. Like I mentioned before, Nebraska 9-3, 10 wins would be nice for the program. But then again, tomorrow comes and the staff is out the door. Mike Riley takes over, starts putting his pictures on the wall over there at Nebraska. Which program has the most to gain with a win tonight, and which team has the most to lose with a loss?
Well, there's no question in my mind USC has the most to gain. I mean, you're coming off a great win over Notre Dame, 49-14. You certainly don't want to experience anything like you did the UCLA week. You've had a lot of losses during the season on games that we can always say you should have won and you didn't win, or you could have won and maybe the time management or game management didn't work, or somebody dropped a pass, or there was a penalty on a big play. So you don't want any of that today. You don't want any of that today. You want to win. You want to continue with the optimism. They're going to be a great crowd in San Diego. Why? Because they beat Notre Dame. People are fired up again. So to continue with this fire in recruiting and everything else with Sarkisian's first year, you got to win this football game. It isn't like how you going to do. It just got to happen. You got to win this football game. People will not accept USC losing today. And I hate to put that pressure on USC, but you've got to win this game, and not by 1 or 2 points. This has got to be a domination type of football game like USC did against Fresno State last year.
It's always interesting when you play a team where there's a transition going on like the Trojans are. And that's a tough spot because the players really loved Bo Pelini. However, his perception was on the outside, this fiery guy. He had some controversial comments after he was fired that was secretly videotaped. But this is the reason why all 85 of these guys came to Nebraska. It was for Bo Pelini. Now he's gone. Now Barney Cotton may be instituting some different plays. Barney Cotton doesn't care. He's gone tomorrow. He's going to UNLV. I think there's the surprise factor. They can put in a whole bunch of different plays. I think SC is in a tough spot because what is Barney Cotton? He may run a triple reverse pass. He may, do a handoff on the opening kickoff. He may onside the opening kickoff. There's so many different things that he could do just because he's not going to be there tomorrow. So it's an interesting spot for him. But this really does feel like it is really two of the best programs in all of college football. They have been for many, many years. I know Steve Sarkisian probably doesn't know what to expect, but we heard from Steve Sarkisian, and he expects that it's going to be a big-time, a 15-round fight.
When you put on this helmet, just like you put on our helmet, there's a lot of pride that overcomes you. And so we have no doubt we're going to get amazing effort. We have no doubt we're going to get an unbelievable shot from Nebraska, and we have to absorb all of that. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a heck of a game. Two very proud fan bases that are going to be there. They're going to be in full spirit. Should be a heck of a night.
Well,
go ahead, Coach.
Well, he's exactly right. These kids got a lot of pride at Nebraska, and they're going to care, and Barney Cotton's going to care. Barney Cotton's been at Nebraska 8 years. His 3 sons went there. He played there. There's a lot to Nebraska football and history in his veins. He just had to be in a situation where they make a coaching change, and he's not going to be a part of the new staff. So, but he would love to win this football game, and he's going to get this team ready to play. The players I know like Barney Cotton. They like him. They like him as a person, and they'll give him an effort. They really will. Will he change a lot of things and run trick plays? Absolutely not. Now, they might run 1 or 2 during the game. When you start to change things when you take over a program, the players think you have no confidence in them, and they think that, we can't beat USC. That's why they're changing our offense. They're changing our defense, but they don't think we can compete. All you do is do what got you. You won 9 games. Just get there and do what you do and do it well, and you can win this football game. Because as you said earlier, this is Nebraska's, maybe you didn't say this, 51st bowl game. It's USC's 48th bowl game. These two teams are used to big football games, and I think Nebraska will come to play. I really think they will.
Well, the Rose Bowl is going to be taking place on Thursday. That is one of the semifinal games in the college football playoff. That's Oregon. It's Florida State. It's going to be sold out. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be amazing. Colin Cowherd, ESPN Radio's Colin Cowherd, will be doing his morning show live from the Rose Bowl. That's 7 until 10 a.m. We encourage you to come on out and attend and be in the crowd for the 3 hours. It's going to be an exciting day for everybody, and make sure and tell Colin we said hello, because both Harvey and I know Colin very well, so that's going to be exciting. But we have got a great game tonight. There's no question in my mind this will not be a sleeper. This will be one of the better, and this is unbelievable. There's 38 bowl games. Can you believe that? There's 38 bowl games. That is incredible. So that means there's 76 teams involved. If you're one of the 40 or so teams that didn't make it into a bowl game, you've got problems.
You know, I got caught up in that the other day, and I told a guy, and he says, no, there's not 78 teams. Because I said 78 teams, there's 76 teams.
76.
Two of the other teams are going to play within one of those bowl games.
That's
There's
true.
Two of them. They're going to play in two bowl games.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. So I got caught up in that. You know, I don't know if you want to talk about this now or not, but I remember Coach Sarkisian making a statement that this is the best team USC will play this entire season.
It could be. It could be. I know they got good players. You know, they've had players who've been hurt this year. We're going to talk about the running back, Amir Abdullah, but it's a solid team. There's no question about it. And they've played a tough schedule, but we'll talk about some of their wins, some of their losses, but it's a good one. 5 o'clock, it's the Holiday Bowl right on this radio station. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Coming up after the break, we're going to take a national perspective. We are going to discuss more about the college football playoff and this week's rankings. For the Coach Harvey Hyde, I'm Ron Pivo, and you are listening to Land Rover Trojan Game Day. Welcome back, everybody, to the Land Rover Trojan Game Day. Ron Pivo along with the Coach Harvey Hyde. We're going to be here for the next hour and a half. Hand it over to Steve Mason and the rest of the crew, and they're going to take you up to kickoff for the Holiday Bowl. USC taking on Nebraska. It should be a terrific game. Really, really good game. Really looking forward to it. There are some other bowl games going on this afternoon. Arizona State just scored in the Sun Bowl, so the Sun Devils are leading Duke 27-17. That's in the third quarter. The Independence Bowl is just kicked off. Miami has a 6-0 lead on South Carolina. That's in the second quarter, and South Carolina and Steve Spurrier, they've fallen and doesn't look like they're getting up. Military Bowl is in the books. That was Virginia Tech beating Cincinnati 33-17. And kicking off a little bit later is the Pinstripe Bowl, Boston College against Penn State, which should definitely be an interesting matchup. So Steve Sarkisian, we mentioned before the break, he said that Nebraska is going to be the best team that USC is going to play this season. No question that Nebraska has talent. Nebraska has 3 losses. All 3 of those losses, though, were to ranked teams. It was Michigan State number 10, it was Wisconsin number 20, and it was Minnesota number 25. I don't know if you agree or disagree, because SES played some really good teams, including Stanford. So is this the toughest opponent that the Trojans will be playing this year?
Well, I think you get your team ready by telling them that if you aren't ready, they could be the best team you played the entire year, because they're very physical. They do have outstanding athletes, but they don't have as many outstanding athletes as USC has. Are they the best team that USC played this year? Hardly. I'm just going to tell you, USC played Stanford, Arizona State, Arizona, Utah, UCLA. Please, it's not the best team that USC has played this year. In fact, when you look at Nebraska, their schedule, if you go down their schedule and you see who they played McNeese State, Florida Atlantic, and barely won those games. As far as McNeese State, what was it, 31-24. They beat Fresno State about the same numbers that USC beat Fresno State.
That's a weak non-conference schedule, Coach. Rice just ran up and down the field in the Hawaii Bowl on Fresno State. If you're Nebraska, you got to start doing a little bit better than that, because what are you telling like you just mentioned before about the trick plays? You don't think there's going to be trick plays because you're telling your team that we can't beat them head to head, we can't beat them straight up, so we're going to try some trickery. What are you telling, and this is more on the AD at Nebraska, what are you telling your players that we're going to go McNeese State, we're going to play all these all these weaker opponents? Coach, you don't think we can travel across the country and play, whoever it is, Florida, Miami, SC? I mean, why can't they schedule SC in a home and home?
Well, they can, but there seems to be a trend now as far as playing these type of teams non-conference, because they don't want to get beat up, and it means so much to be undefeated in rankings that you want to get those wins. Does it prepare you for conference? I don't think it does prepare you for conference, because you're not really challenged early in the year. But you see a lot of teams doing this now. But going down, they beat Illinois. Now, Illinois, they're not a great football team. They beat Miami. Miami's not a great football team. Now, Michigan State's a good football team. Michigan State plays great defense. They're a good football team. They won 10 games. Northwestern, I don't know. They're an average football team. Rutgers won their bowl game, but how good would they be in the Pac-12? Purdue, where would they be in the Pac-12? Believe me, I don't know how many games they won. Purdue won. They were 1-7 in the Big Ten,
Purdue's
3-9
horrible.
overall.
So basically, Nebraska beat the teams they were supposed to beat, and probably lost to the teams that they should have lost to. But this is, Nebraska. You get fired when you go 9-3, and the fans of Nebraska and the administration in Nebraska knows that it has to do better. Nebraska is playing for national titles, just like SC is playing for national titles. They're not playing to get that 10th win.
Well, you're right there, but he didn't get fired because he didn't win 10 games. He got fired because Bo is Bo. Bo's going to tell you the way he sees it. And he was jumping on the AD. He was jumping on a lot of people, and they just felt there was like a insubordination. I mean, he would come to work in coveralls if he could, okay? He's that type of coach. He gets the most out of his players, too. Believe me, he doesn't have a lot of great players. Now, he has some players that, Randy Gregory and some of these guys, Abdullah and these guys can play, Armstrong can play, but he brings them to a different level of pride, and he's a player's coach. He's the type of guy that you'd walk down the aisle with him or not down the alley with him because he's not going to turn around and run away. So he's a hard guy, okay? He doesn't care about all of the images or marketing. If you see his hat, it's on halfway straight and halfway off. He doesn't wear cool sunglasses. He doesn't do any of that. He's a football coach. He's a Bear Bryant line offense or defensive coordinator type of guy. And that's why he's not at Nebraska anymore, because they want somebody they can market. They want to be able to, and Mike Riley's a great coach, and he's a nice guy. And they want this type of image in their program. But he's got to win. I'll tell you, Mike Riley won't be around if they don't win. And will he win 9 games next year? I can't say he is.
Well, not with Abdullah gone. Well, he might. We don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, the college. So we're in the midst here of the bowl season, and the big games. Well, there's a lot of big games, but the biggest games are going to be Thursday. It's the college football playoff. The college football playoff spotlight is brought to you by the tire industry's best warranty, and that is Nexen. So we're going to have at the Rose Bowl. It's going to be Oregon taking on Florida State. It's also going to be in the other semifinal, Alabama and Ohio State. The committee was very subjective. We didn't have computers spitting out numbers this year. It was 12 people in a room, 13 if you include Archie Manning. So did the committee get it right? Are the 4 best teams going to be playing Thursday?
Well, Ron, I think the 4 best teams are going to be playing Thursday, okay? But I didn't like the format of how they got there. What I mean by that, or what bowl they're playing in, the committee had a chance to work with the Tournament of Roses to have a traditional Rose Bowl game. Oregon against Ohio State. That's a traditional game that's been there forever, okay? Ohio State hasn't been to the Rose Bowl in years. I would have rather seen them put 4 teams, rank them all number 1. What's the difference? Who knows who's going to win? And put them with best fits the geography where people will come to the bowl games, where tickets are going to be hot, and they pay back the communities and the economy of those areas. Florida State was in the Rose Bowl last year. People at Florida State are looking to travel to Dallas for the championship game. So they're not going to be coming out here in groves like the Ohio State people would have been coming out here, because that's a traditional happening. So I would have liked to have seen Oregon and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Now, that's just me saying this.
No, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, though, because I didn't think of it that way. I look through the rose-colored glasses, and I think Oregon, Florida State, God, what a sexy matchup that is. Jameis Winston in the Rose Bowl. Here's a team, Florida State, that would never come out west to play SC, UCLA, Oregon, Arizona. They don't do it. They don't need to. They recruit in Florida, fan base, alumni, all in Florida. But I see what you're saying. I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
And now look at the Sugar Bowl. You've got Alabama, and you got Florida State. Geographically, a great place for crowds to go.
Yeah.
A huge game. The ACC conference against the Southeastern Conference champion. Huge game. And then the winners from both of those go to the national championship game in Arlington.
And that would have been your hypothetical Final Four.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's the way I like to see it. I'd like to see it where you take the 4 best teams. You don't rank them. These are our 4 best teams. Now, where is it best to put them to have great ticket sales, the environment, commuting as far as where they live, the whole package? And to me, that would have been a better matchup as far as giving back to the communities, the economy that these people work year round to have.
I think you're right. That does make sense. In certain years, maybe it doesn't make sense. If you have a number one team that is blowing everybody out by 20 points, you can't match them up with a one-loss team like a Florida State this year who's maybe squeaking by its opponents. But in certain years, you're right, it does make sense. Let's talk about who's in and who's out. Who's in, who's out, brought to you by In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger, that is what a hamburger is all about. Tonight is the final game for the USC seniors. Hayes Pollard, who has just been one of the greats of all time. He is going to finish second in all-time tackles next to, I think it's Marcus Cotton, who played in the 80s. So Hayes Pollard has just been incredible. Randall Telfair, J.R. Tavai, Josh Saw, and Gerald Bowman, they're going to be playing in their final games. Leonard Williams has not committed, and usually guys don't commit whether they're going to the NFL or not until after a bowl game, but I think everybody thinks Leonard Williams will be going. There was an article in the LA Times a few days ago. Leonard Williams was still on the fence if he was going to go, if he was not going to go. He loves the atmosphere. He loves being in college, and who doesn't? But he has extenuating circumstances. I believe he has a child that he needs to support. And when you're a top 5 pick and you're going to get guaranteed money, which a lot of guys in the NFL, even guys who are established players in the NFL do not get that guaranteed money, and they certainly don't get upwards of $20-25 million, and that's what Leonard Williams will get if he gets drafted in the top 5, which he certainly will. So you're talking to Leonard Williams. What advice do you give him? There's a chance Buck Allen, the running back, might go pro. Cody Kessler, we know, is staying. Nelson Aguilar, we're not sure about. So what advice, if you're a coach and you sit down Sunday morning, Monday morning with a guy like Leonard Williams, what advice do you give him about going to the next level?
Well, when you sit down with these guys and you talk to them, first of all, you don't tell them what to do, because if something doesn't go right and they get hurt next year and you've talked them into coming back, you blame it on yourself. You really do. I had that same situation with Randall Cunningham at one time. I said, Randall, you got to do what you got to do. But I told him the ups and downs of both sides of it. And I think that's what Coach Sarkisian will do with Leonard Williams. Emotionally, Leonard wants to stay. He loves USC. He loves his teammates. He loves the winning. He loves what's going on here. But is it the right thing for him to do as far as for his family and his future and all the above? So he's got to make that decision. But you can point out some of the things that are positive and negative on both. And what he has to do is make that decision himself. Myself, and I know the SC fans aren't going to want to hear this, but if I was sitting with him and I was looking at him in the eyes, I'd almost say, I love you, but you got to go.
Yeah.
You just have to, because he's such a great player with such great explosion that what does he have to prove? He doesn't have to prove anything. He's going to be one of the top 5 players taken.
Yeah. When you think back on this group of seniors, or whether if it's juniors who are going to the next level, they've gone through a lot, probably more than any other group of USC Trojan football players have ever gone through. They've gone through coaching changes. They've gone through 2 10-win seasons. They've gone through the loss of scholarships. I mean, it's just been an emotional roller coaster, and it's tough when you're 52 or 22 going through these emotions. So what will you remember from this group?
Well, first of all, I think they're stronger, better people for being able to go through this and staying at USC. They could have transferred. They could have gone somewhere else. They stayed at USC. They went there. They made a commitment to USC. They played for USC. They knew they couldn't go to bowl games, but they stayed there, and they played for USC. And USC and the USC family respects them for that. They could have run off. They could have gone somewhere else, but they didn't. They stayed there. They played. They went through these bad times, which were tough times. A lot of turmoil, a lot of controversy. Even this year, and they still won 8 football games, hoping to win their 9th football game today. So I think they'll remember these teams and these players. I think they've bonded closer together because they've turned a negative into a positive. A lot of people thought that the SC program would be, it should be shut down with this type of penalty. They will never survive. It's going to kill USC football. Well, it's hurt USC football, but it hasn't destroyed USC football. All it's done is they bonded together, and now they're back, and they're going for it, and they feel like they've really accomplished something more together than if they weren't with these sanctions and some of the things that happened. So myself, I take my hat off to these coaches. I take my hat off to these players who's had the opportunity of holding hands, playing through a lot of these problems, adversity, sanctions, and still now coming to a point where they've graduated and now we're going to move on, these seniors.
And what I will give them so much credit for is the fact that these guys weren't even closely involved with what transpired a few years ago, and they got hurt. Some of the ramifications of what transpired many years ago, and it just came to fruition now, and they just happen to be in quote unquote wrong place, wrong time, and they still, like you said, 2 10-win seasons. They're on the verge of possibly a 9th win, and they've really. Look, and they're a Hail Mary and a last drive in Utah from putting together a possible 11-win season for a team that oftentimes was so shorthanded they only had 50-something players on the sidelines. And people think that's a lot. Well, 11 play on offense, 11 play on defense. Yeah, but sometimes you got to go to your 7th or 8th offensive lineman or your depth chart. I mean, that's why you have 85 scholarships, because depth in college football is so important. So I give these guys a lot of credit, like you said, Coach.
I do. I give them a lot of credit. And Ron, I disagree, and only in philosophy here, okay? But I didn't think the numbers hurt them as much as it was made out to be. Everybody talked about that. And now towards the end, you even hear the coaches now and people saying it didn't hurt us. Yes, it did, possibly in scrimmaging and substitution and injuries. But you can only put 11 guys out there. And remember, the walk-ons at USC or the backups at USC would be starting at other schools. People don't understand that. Like I've always said, I wouldn't exchange rosters with any other team in the Pac-12. I've said that all along because they've got great players. It's putting them on the field with proper matchups, with a great attitude, with an offense and a defense that fits your personnel, and getting your players on the field at one time, not backed up at different positions. So numbers, yes, it sounds good when you talk about it. They didn't have as many players, but they did have some great players that played.
Oh, really good players. Some all-timers. Leonard Williams, all-timer. One of the top 5 or 7 players to ever put on a USC uniform. Hayes Pillard is an all-timer. Cody Kessler, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is putting up numbers that Mark Sanchez put up. He could be one of the all-timers, especially if he's coming back next year. He could put up even better numbers than he has this year. So coming up after the break, we're going to go around the Pac-12 for the final time this season. He's the coach, Harvey Hyde. I'm Ron Pivo. This is Land Rover Trojan Game Day. Welcome back, everybody, to Land Rover Trojan Game Day. I'm Ron Pivo, along with the coach, Harvey Hyde, and we're going to take you to about 3 o'clock when Steve Mason and the rest of the guys will take over, and they will take you to 5 o'clock. And that is when the USC Trojans will be taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Holiday Bowl. I'd say there's about 5 or 6 bowl games, Coach, that I have kind of circled on my personal calendar that I will not miss for the world. This is one of them. I just love the matchup. I love the intrigue. I love 2 teams that don't really know too much about each other, but they read about each other, week to week during the regular season. I think that's what bowl games are all about. It's about matchups. It's about styles. It's about, look, if you're the Holiday Bowl and you see that, okay, this team went here and that team, I can't have this team, and you pick out USC. They were just licking their chops to get this matchup. USC has never played in the Holiday Bowl, even though we're 2.5 hours away from San Diego. I remember growing up, this used to be the Holiday Bowl where we had, BYU used to play almost every year. Jim McMahon, it was Ty Detmer. BYU went 13-0 and won the national title in 1984 by beating Michigan in the Holiday Bowl. I remember I saw Oregon take on Texas in the Holiday Bowl, but to see USC and Nebraska, it's just a different matchup, and I think these guys got it right. We always talk about, did they get it right 1 through 4? Well, we know who's 1 through 4, but now we're in these other bowl games. To me, this is so intriguing. We talked about it earlier, but I'd love to see USC and Nebraska play more. I know for obvious reasons they're not going to. They're not going to do the home and homes anymore, but this is just a terrific matchup, style-wise and matchup-wise. I love this matchup. But there's a lot of other Pac-12 teams that are going to be in bowl games. How strong is this conference now when we have how many of them? We got 8 bowl-eligible teams out of the 12. And what did you say earlier? They're all favored?
They're all favored. Every
incredible.
Pac-12 team is favored in the bowl games. Yep.
What happened? What happened to the years where they said the Pac-12 was soft? What happened? Where was the transition?
Well, I don't think there's a transition. We've all believed, and if you look at the guys that make the odds, have always believed that the Pac-12 is very strong. In fact, I think the Pac-12 and the Southeastern Conference are the two best conferences. Now, they never match up. If you notice, it's the only way they're going to match up this year in a bowl game is if Oregon wins and Alabama wins. You don't see ever a Pac-12 team playing a Southeastern Conference team in a bowl game. They just don't.
Or regular season.
Not regular season either, hardly. Every time they have, in most situations, the Pac-12 is won. I remember when, we don't want to go back and talk about it, but the Pac-12 is won in most situations. When SC was really rolling along, they went down and, let's see, who they beat? They beat Virginia Tech. They beat Virginia. They beat Arkansas. Who else did they beat down there? They beat somebody else. I can't remember now.
You know what? I was up working in Oregon when Oregon State played LSU. That was back, that was almost in like 2002, I think it was, maybe about 10 years ago. So, I mean, that's how long it's been. And I remember talking to the AD. His name is Mitch Barnhart. He's now the AD at Kentucky. And I remember when he was talking about the conversations that he would have with the SEC people, and they wouldn't do home and home. I mean, for LSU, there is a team like an LSU or Alabama. What's the benefit of an LSU, or even what's the benefit of an Alabama or even a Nebraska to come out and play in Oregon, play in Oregon State, or even play on the West Coast? I mean, there's only 2 or 3 reasons why you'd schedule that. Number one, they don't need the money. There's no alumni base. And you're not going to do it for a paycheck because LSU or Alabama, they already get large paychecks. So that's why you just don't get these intriguing matchups anymore.
No, you don't do that. Notre Dame, of course, has one with SC, but that's tradition. You saw Michigan State this year going to Oregon, and they left with a loss early in the season. So, there's more of a tendency now not to play those type of non-conference games because the record means so much in your rankings as far as for the playoffs and making the top 4 teams so you can play for a national championship. So you don't see that as often as you used to. Now, USC has always maintained they will play the best. Always maintained it. Mike Garrett's theory was, hey, if you come to my house, I'll go to your house. That's just the way it is. Yeah. But you're going to come to my house, too. I'm not just going to your house. So, you see this happening. You're going to see this happen a little bit next year in the USC schedule, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So, those things happen. And I don't know if those type of games prepare you, but they give you a victory. And that's what people are looking for, the big W.
Well, if you take a look at the Pac-12 teams in the bowl games already, Utah had a terrific win against Colorado State in the Las Vegas Bowl. Colorado State just lost its coach, Jim McElvain. He's going to coach at Florida. So, we're talking about there's a transition at Nebraska, and now we're looking at a team like Colorado State, which is transitioning, and they couldn't get their footing. So they were completely in transition, and I don't know if that's going to happen tonight with Nebraska, but Colorado State slipped a little bit when they didn't know who their coach was going to be or their real coach wasn't coaching them. UCLA is going to be playing Kansas State. Right now, Arizona State is beating Duke 30-17. They're going into the fourth quarter in that. Stanford is playing in the Foster Farms Bowl, what amounts to a home game against Maryland. That is up in the Santa Clara in the Levi Stadium. Arizona will be taking on Boise State, which I think is one of the more attractive. I mentioned there's about 5 or 6 bowl games that I really want to watch. Arizona and Boise State. Oregon, obviously, against Florida State. UCLA, Kansas State. Oklahoma State is taking on Washington. Nice first year for Chris Peterson up with the Huskies. He's 8-5, trying to get to that 9-win plateau. But you're right. I mean, these are all winnable games. These are all strong programs looking to get stronger. The Pac-12 South has been so strong this year, and with Arizona State down here, USC, UCLA, it's just like Murderers Row down here in the Pac-12 now. I mean, you got 4 teams that didn't make a bowl game. I think Cal is on a resurgence. I think Washington State is going to come back. I think Oregon State is going to come back. So next year it's going to get stronger and stronger with these Pac-12 teams.
Well, kids like to play in these type of programs. Money isn't a problem at any of these programs. They share the revenue. Everyone has great facilities, and one school can't take them all. And now you see more of the Pac-12 teams doing national recruiting. If you look at Oregon's roster, they've got players from all over the country. They've got more players from all over the country than any other roster in the Pac-12. USC has done great recruiting nationally, especially the Florida area when Lane Kiffin was there. All of the players that came out of Florida that year, or the past couple of years, they all start. They all play. They're all great athletes. So, when you have a reputation and you have facilities and you have money and you're on national TV, kids like a certain style of play, and that's where they go to school. They like a certain style of play because today, great athletes look at tomorrow rather than always today. I want to play early. I want to be able to play and get to the next level. So they want to get to a level where they can play in a program and a conference where big is against big. And you see all the comparisons. Just look at the quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Just look at the coaching staffs in the Pac-12. They're all the top. Where is there a gimme in the Pac-12? There is not a gimme game in the Pac-12. Now, Colorado's got to get a little better. Don't get me wrong.
A lot better.
They got to get a little bit better. But there aren't many gimmies, believe me.
This week in the Pac-12 is sponsored by Toyota. Great deals and great MPG. It's MPG, made easy at your Toyota dealer. I also want to thank the Touchdowns for a Cure LA Car Guy. $17,100 has been donated through 12 games. Coming up after the break, we're going to hear from a couple of guys who are going to be involved in tonight's game. Coach Sarkisian, and also the quarterback, Cody Kessler.